This is the second time that I have done that. My goodness. So I'm sorry, this is your second time. I don't know why I even clicked that button last time. Thank you so much, Anthony, for giving me the heads up. Uh, I have to start again like last time. So I'm Yonci. This is my channel, Chasing Yonci. I swear I know how to use my software. Apparently I just don't know what I'm doing these last 2 weeks. So thank you for those of you who stuck around past the first few minutes, even though there was absolutely no sound. Hey, Will, I see some new names out there. Anthony, shout out to you. Drop your city and state so I can give you a shout out. But here on my channel, I am obsessed with all things love, dating, sex, and relationships, and you can find me everywhere on the internet as Chasing Yonci. The most important platform being Instagram because that's where I am the most frequent, but I am on Facebook and Twitter and TikTok and all that. But I have just now instated a option on my website. It's an anonymous Q&A. We have been doing it for a couple of years in my Facebook group, but I wanted to bring it to the people. So if you have a question that you want to ask anonymously and get feedback from strangers, go ahead and do that. Maybe it's a relationship question or something that's a little bit personal. This way, even I don't know who is asking. Oh, shout out to Columbia, Maryland. Very nice, very nice. I believe it's your first time. If it's not, let me know, but shout out to you if it is. We are going to have a good show tonight. Everybody knows that relationships have a very shaky start if the foundation is off. That is the most important foundation to have. And so we're going to break down some very practical tips for communication. We got one of the OGs, Akira, in the house from LBC. Shout out to you, Miss Thurman. All right, so without any further ado, let us get into it. There was a show that I have been enjoying. I started binge watching, and I don't remember how I even came across it, but it's called Put a Ring on It. And it's a show where couples will come on who are in a position where they've been together for a while and they can't get over the hump to decide, should we walk down the aisle or should we just break up altogether? And it's really interesting because if you look at the communication, you see where usually that's where the person has gone wrong. And so I have a lot of stuff that I want to share with you guys that will hopefully be very productive that you can use in your personal lives. And of course, we focus on relationships here, but this applies to any communication that you are having with another person. All right, so the very first thing I want to talk about is the knee-jerk reaction that people have. In watching a lot of these reality shows, I see people go to expressing anger, frustration, or even apathy, acting like, I'm unbothered, I don't care. This is because this emotion feels safer. We feel, for whatever reason as humans, that is something that makes us feel more powerful. It makes us feel like we're in control, and it makes us not feel vulnerable. For some reason, anger to us, when we're doing it, makes us feel like we're, it's a stronger emotion out of the other ones. But if you're really observant, somebody who doesn't have control over their anger, to me, it's just as weak as somebody who is maybe being fearful or something like that. But I try not to judge emotions. I want to judge effective communication. Thank you, Anthony. If you guys haven't hit that like button, please do so. And if it's your first time, just letting you know, you have to close the chat window to be able to get to the button, and then you can come back in and watch it again. Hey, Chastity. Hey, girl. Saw you earlier on Instagram. Thank you for coming on over to YouTube. Appreciate each and every one of you. But so I want to debunk that, okay? You don't seem more powerful when you have fear, when you express yourself through frustration and anger or apathy. And what's worse, not only do you not seem more powerful, people empathize with you less. So if you are coming across as angry and frustrated, the human reaction, which psychology is so fascinating to me for this reason, the human reaction is to defend, right? Because anger seems like you're attacking me, now I need to defend back. But the sad part is, a lot of times when you're angry, that's just the surface level emotion that you're displaying. If you really get to the bottom of your emotion is hurt. You feel hurt, you feel betrayed, you feel disappointed, you feel scared. All these emotions emote a completely different, they cause a much different reaction from someone else. So if I say to you, I'm really pissed, what you did pissed me off, you're going to get a different response from that person than, I'm really, really hurt by what you did. I was devastated. I was so sick yesterday. I couldn't even eat. I was just so upset. That is a completely different emotion you're going to get from your partner. So not only does it not make you more powerful, it actually takes away a lot of your power, because it provokes your partner when you take that hard stand. Acting like you don't care can also trigger your partner. A lot of times I was watching on these episodes where people would say things that they absolutely didn't mean. And if you follow me on Instagram, you know I did a post where I said, don't say these things if you didn't mean it. And one of them was, I don't care. Like, do you, whatever, I'm unbothered. And here's the thing. I always talk about a pendulum, okay? Hardly anything in the world in life is black and white. Most things are on a pendulum. And so you can be all the way over here, super insecure and needy and possessive. And then you could be all the way over here where you act like you're totally apathetic, that you don't care, right? But in a healthy relationship, people want to see on some level that you care. On some level that you have fear of losing them. On some level, you're a little jealous when you give of yourself to someone else, okay? It's just a thing. We want to feel it. It's something with kids, some kids push just to see where their parents are going to push back. It's this subconscious feeling that you want to feel like there are boundaries, and having those boundaries make you feel loved. So if your partner is doing something that bothers you, don't try to have this tough exterior and say, oh I don't care, whatever, do whatever you want to do. Take time to get vulnerable and express what it is you really feel. Actually, babe, I'm really not comfortable with that. Actually, it makes me feel like you don't respect me, or it makes me feel like you're not considering how I feel. Really articulate yourself and let your partner have a chance to respond back. There were so many times, and this is such a frustrating thing for me when I watch shows on TV, when the person is with the producer and the producer asks, how did you feel? That person doesn't have a filter because there's not an emotional attachment to the producer. So they say 100% how they feel. I feel like he doesn't love me because he doesn't show me affection. But when they're with their partner, they're like, they'll downplay it or not really break it down to the level that the person could understand. So that's one of the major tips I would say, is really understand what you're feeling, and don't be afraid to go there. Don't be afraid to get to the base emotion, which is fear, sadness, disappointment, those types of things. Don't keep operating on the surface level emotions, which is the initial trigger, of anger and things like that. What I do have to say is, if you have expressed emotion to your partner and you haven't gotten the response that you want, I would recommend, if it's a dating relationship, seriously consider if that's the partner for you, because communication is so crucial. And if you are married with your partner, or perhaps have children with your partner, and it's not something that you can just easily get out of, I would strongly suggest getting counseling, because this is going to lead to really toxic environments potentially down the road. And I also want to get into something I'm going to be posting on Instagram this upcoming week, but talking about vulnerability, and I'm going to lean more on the women right now. A lot of women will say, my guy doesn't open up to me. My guy doesn't open up to me. By the way, if you guys have not done so already, please smash that like button. It's really important for me because it lets YouTube know that people are enjoying the content. They don't have any other way of knowing if a video is successful or not. And if they see enough engagement, they will push it out to more people. So take a moment and smash that like button. You will have to get out of the chat window for just a second, but then you can come right back. But I would really appreciate it if you guys could hit that. That would be great. Anthony says, when it comes to communication, understanding body language is helpful. Posture speaks volumes. Definitely, Anthony. I will add. So yes, be very mindful of you. If you have, what do they call it, resting bitch face or things like that, be really mindful of your body language. Crossed arms, definitely gives a vibe of like, I don't care, or I'm closed off, or, what do you have to say? A lot of times people will make nonverbal communication, which they talked about a lot in the show, eye rolling, just things like that, and just really be cognizant of yourself. A lot of, you know, the burden of being an adult is having control, having self-control over your emotions. And so you have to constantly put yourself in your partner's shoes and say, how would I feel if I was expressing something that was a big deal to me, and that person had a body language of, I'm not really looking at you in your eyes, I'm not going to show you I'm paying attention, or my arms are crossed, or I'm clicking my tongue, or I'm rolling my eyes. Nonverbal communication, as Anthony mentioned, is really, really, really big. And so I would definitely agree that it goes hand in hand. And if your spirit is not right, sometimes you can hardly control your body language, your nonverbal body language. That's something that's difficult for me because I'm a self-proclaimed empath, and I read a lot into people's body language, and I can pick up on things that they don't even say. But getting back to what I was talking about, where a lot of women say, my partner doesn't open up, he doesn't express himself. I want to get into the reasons why potentially a guy especially won't open up. And of course, this can apply to a woman, but it's more the norm from what I have experienced in seeing women complaining this about their male partner. But in the past, somebody might have dismissed them. It could have been their parent, somebody who was a very strong figure in their life. It could have been a former girlfriend, but somebody dismissed their feelings. They acted like it wasn't a big deal. And God forbid they told them man up, or you're acting like a female, and using other words that I won't say on YouTube. Don't want to get banned or censored or flagged. But all these negative things when a man is opening up, and God forbid he gets so emotional that he cries. There are women who will laugh at that, say that they will question his sexual orientation because he cries. And for whatever reason, people look at men a lot of times as these less than human creatures that should just move throughout life without having any emotion. But suddenly, when it's something important to the woman, he's supposed to suddenly tap into these emotions. This is something that gets taught quite early on when boys are told, you know, boys don't cry, man up, all these things. Men learn how to compartmentalize and hold all this stuff in. And then when they get into a relationship, suddenly they're being asked to tap into something that they haven't tapped into for a very long time. And it's not, from what I've heard, something they can just switch on and off. They're not like actors who could just go from anger to crying to this to that. You know, it's a difficult thing. So the very first thing is, it could have been somebody in their past has taught them subconsciously that your feelings don't matter, your feelings are not important, keep them to yourself. The other thing could be that you've done that. You might have done that in your relationship. You guys might have been together for a long time, and maybe you were young and dumb when you first started out, and maybe you said something could have scarred him way back then. Something that you could have said could have scarred him. So you're going to have to work. It's going to be an uphill battle, but you're going to have to work to regain the trust, and you're going to have to keep communicating with him and letting him know that you care, giving him those signs, those, I'm going to mention Anthony's point, the nonverbal signs as well, that I'm listening. Put your phone down, give him eye contact, possibly touch his hands. You know, when you guys are communicating, let him know it's a safe place to be, and never, ever, 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 ever weaponize his vulnerability. Don't ever, even in jest, bring up something that he shared to you during a moment of transparency, because that will sever any progress that you have done so far. That will immediately make him regress and shut down. And a lot of guys don't leave. They will emotionally leave. They will shut down. They will not communicate. They will never let you see any transparency, but they will physically stay. And that is a miserable place to be when you feel like you can't connect emotionally with your partner. So make sure you are not part of the problem. The other thing is that he might have seen you and your girlfriends making fun of someone else who was being vulnerable. Like, man, he acting like a B, or he's acting like a P, you know what. When men hear that, or when men see posts and things like that on social media, they take it all in. It's like, noted, okay, because no man wants to be seen as unmanly. That's like the worst thing ever for guys. So be careful, be careful, be careful what you say and what you do around your guy. And you should even check yourself if that's something that you feel like. Because that's just a very toxic way of thinking. Also, the other thing we have to be careful with our partner is not to critique how they express their emotion. So we all express ourselves differently, and a lot of times people will have different communication styles, and one partner will try to get the other partner to communicate in that way. Not everybody speaks in the same way, and your partner might not be a very emotional person. Sometimes if you grow up in a household where there weren't tons and tons of emotions, that's just the norm. Other people, they might think that their partner is overly emotional. You also want to make sure you don't criticize them there. Some people grew up in homes or in environments where emotions were very much encouraged. It was like, let's talk it through. Let's, yada, yada, yada. And so you definitely don't want to discourage your person. I know women especially hate to be told, you're too emotional when they are just expressing how they feel with passion. You guys feeling this so far? Let me know how you guys are doing there in the comments. The other thing could be that your partner doesn't feel like they have an invitation to speak. Maybe you just have never asked them, hey, how do you feel about this? Maybe you just go through life and go through things in your relationship and you just make decisions. It really serves well for you if you ask your partner, hey, how did you feel about that? Or I'm about to do this. How do you feel about that? Incorporate your partner, and that lets them know, again, that their feelings are valid, their feelings are wanted, and they are welcomed. Making sure I didn't miss anything. And just give yourself patience. Practice patience, give your partner patience, give them the time that they need, the space they need. And the thing is that we have to be careful how we respond when the person opens up, because what they're telling us might be hard to hear. What they're telling us might be difficult to receive. But if we want those doors of communication to stay open, we have to really practice self-control. So if your partner says something that infuriates you, try not to react right away, because they're going to just associate telling you the truth and being vulnerable with you flipping out. So if you have to just say, you know what, in this moment, I'm going to listen to my partner. Collect yourself and then come back, and maybe when you're calmer, say, hey, when you shared this, it caused me to feel this. I know a lot of times if a guy, for example, will give a woman a critique and say, man, I don't like that you do this, or this makes me upset. The person will automatically think, oh, you don't want me anymore, as opposed to hearing, no, I'm giving you specifics of what you can do to make me go back to that feeling that we first had when we got together. So often the knee-jerk reaction is to just be defensive and not hear what was being said. And I'm going to allude back to the show. Oh, I love that, P. Johnson. Thank you. So I don't agree with this tactic. I think it's bizarre, but on this show, which is on the O Network, shout out to Oprah Winfrey and her network, but on this show, put a ring on it, they take couples that are kind of on that breaking point. Do we break up, or do we, get married, get engaged? And they add new people to the mix. So it's not cheating in the sense, because everybody knows what's going on, but they go out on dates with other people. And so many times the person would go on a date with a new person. So the woman in the relationship would go on a date with a guy. The guy in the relationship would go on a date with a girl. And they would start to see things that they were lacking in their relationship. So when they would come home from the date, the person would say, how did it go? And for example, one guy said, oh, I really liked the date with so-and-so because she was so affectionate. She was so touchy-feely. And as you see the clips, she touches face, she touches arm, when she laughs, she, make contact, things like that. And so the girlfriend, obviously rightly so, she got jealous and upset, and she got defensive. Me on the outside looking in with no emotions involved, I'm going, just take note. Just take note. He's not saying he wants to be with that other person. He's saying he likes that thing. So implement that. So try to look at the situation constructively when your partner is critiquing you or saying what they don't like, and saying, okay, at least I have something constructive that I can work on. Now, I always have to give this disclaimer that sometimes you could be with someone who is toxic, somebody who is just negative and tears you down and is emotionally abusive. That is not the type of situation I'm talking about. I'm not talking about someone who demeans you or puts you down. But couples should be able to talk about things that bother you without all the focus being on the partner who's receiving the information. That's just immature and childish, and it's going to make them shut down. Let's see. Elizabeth says, is it okay to address the critique later? Or will they think you're trying to bring the situation up again? What I would say, Elizabeth, it's all about how you present it, right? And if you guys haven't done so already, please smash that like button for the new people who just came in. You have to leave the chat, click the like button, then come back in. You guys can see it. But if you could do that, it'd be really helpful. Thank you so much. But Elizabeth, what I would do is I would preface it this way. You know what, babe? Yesterday, or whatever day, yesterday when you were talking to me about how it feels like, you know, I never XYZ, I was in my feelings. I was quite emotional and I didn't want to respond out of anger or frustration or hurt. And so I needed to take a beat. I needed to take a minute to think about it and really focus on yada, yada, yada. Maybe can you give me some examples of what I've done, or here's my response now. If you say something like that, I can't imagine your person getting upset. And if you realize that you're having a, you know, really intense reaction while it's happening, you can even say, hey, can I, you know, I'm hearing you. Can I have a minute to kind of let this sink in, or can I have a minute to process this? Because I'm really struggling right now. And it's really helpful to let your partner in on what's happening subconsciously. So many times we assume the person knows what we're thinking. And if you're dating a person or you're exclusive together, you should be at a place where you could be totally vulnerable. So you could let them know, hey, I'm actually trying to work on my communication. Times where I can feel myself getting emotional. So when we're having conversations, you know, I might have a moment where I'm like, oh, church finger, give me a minute. Let me collect myself. And you guys could start to make a joke out of certain things. But work on that vulnerability and letting them know what you're going through at that time. I've had times where I've gotten so frustrated. I'm like, I literally need a second to just calm down. And, you know, we'll just stop talking for just a minute and I'll get my thoughts together. That is safe and healthy communication. Hey there, I think it's Cherie, Shakisha. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. Welcome. Let me know where you are watching from. But yeah, I think that would be really, really important. And the other thing that you can say, so when the person is sharing with you something that's on their heart, you can then practice this by saying, okay, can I tell you what I think I heard you say? Because we always have a filter when we listen. And sometimes we can miss something that's really important, but that we don't think is a big piece. And we just communicate differently sometimes. So if you have an agreement with your partner, okay, what I heard you say is, it feels like such and such and such, and they could say, yes, you got it right, cool, the communication was effective. Or they could say, no, that's actually not it. Now, one of the things I will tell you is such a pet peeve is when I tell someone I didn't understand what they were saying, and they say, what I said was, and just repeat themselves as though I was hard of hearing or slow. And it's not that I have trouble comprehending, it's just I don't think I'm getting it fully. So be careful when you are repeating yourself that you don't patronize the person and make them feel like there's something wrong with them because they didn't get it the first time around. Oh, nice. West Palm Beach, Florida. Very nice. All right, so where am I? And you could also say to somebody too, hey, you know, what did you hear me say when I shared this with you? Like, how did it resonate with you? What does it sound like I'm saying? And you can make sure that your partner understood it back. But reiterating what I said at the very top of the hour, which to me, I think is the most important, is when you are expressing yourself and you are filled with emotions, try very hard not to communicate from a place of anger and frustration. And don't act like you're apathetic. Don't act like you don't care. Go deeper to the feelings and emotions that make people feel more naked. This scares me. This makes me uncomfortable. I don't feel safe. So instead of saying, for example, let me give an example. A woman might say to her guy, you never call me. You don't ever check in. She could instead say, hey, babe, I would love to hear from you more often. When you reach out to me throughout the day. It makes me feel like you love me. When you critique him and fuss at him where it sounds like anger, it just sounds like a mom bossing, you know, her kid around, telling him what to do, as opposed to going at it from your perspective. This is how it makes me feel. As a guy, oh, I love that, Chastity. She says, I'll be asking my mom what she think I said. As a guy, for example, we've all seen this scene where like the woman is about to go out with her girlfriends and she's wearing XYZ and the guy doesn't like it. Instead of him being like, oh, are you wearing that? Why would you wear that? Instead, go to the softer, more vulnerable place where you feel a little more naked, a little more exposed, and say, babe, I'm a guy. I know the way men think. I know how they act, and it makes me feel uncomfortable when you go out dressed like that, because I know the type of attention that it brings out in guys. And I would hate for you to even be in that situation, and it makes me a little bit uncomfortable. I would like some things to be reserved just for me because it makes me feel loved. That is a totally different energy. I'm not saying she's going to receive it. I don't know what kind of woman you have, but that's a totally different energy than barking out orders. Why are you wearing that? You shouldn't wear that. That's inappropriate. At the end of the day, if you feel like you can't get vulnerable with your partner, I strongly suggest that you look into getting a new one. Like I said, it might not be that easy if you're married or you have kids, and I'm not saying jump ship if you have those serious type situations. But if you're just dating and you find that every time you try to communicate with your partner, you blow up. I dated someone like that where it was like everything I said ended up in an argument. That is not normal, you guys. That is a major problem. It should not be always something going on, no matter what you're talking about. I have someone close to me who's always getting advice and things like that, and the person that she's dating stays in his head. So everything is a battle. Everything is read into. Everything is just assumptions. That is not healthy. And one of the things I cannot stress enough is that during the dating phase, it's supposed to be fun. During the dating phase, you're supposed to be spending your energy getting to know each other. You should not be arguing and fighting like cats and dogs during the initial dating phase. I mean, it shouldn't happen down the road either, but over time, you're going to have hiccups. But during the initial dating phase, if you are having these issues, you're probably not compatible, all right? Probably that person, one or both of you, really needs healing. Because when I watch people, and I really enjoy counseling people because I like to have an outsider's perspective and looking in because I don't have the emotions involved. But when I'm counseling people or when I am watching something on a show, I see how much the person loves the other person, and I just see it's a breakdown in communication. Everything was fine until he dismissed her when he said that. Or everything was fine until she refused to kiss him or she made fun of him in front of somebody else. A lot of times, these situations become on 10 simply because the people don't know how to communicate. Aldrian says free game. Nice. All right, let me check. I think I covered everything. Y'all, I've been having shorter and shorter live streams. I'll be getting to my point a little bit better. But I want to say this, okay? So these are, instead of saying this, say this. So instead of saying, I don't care, when they ask you what you're thinking about, say, your decision really made me uncomfortable, and can we discuss it? Okay? A lot of times we might do something that our partner doesn't like, and then, after the fact, we're hurt, and we want to act like it doesn't bother us, but it really does. Don't say, I don't care. Don't say, do you? Like, if they ask your opinion and you don't like something they said, don't say, well, just do you. Like, do what you want to do. Because that's not what you really mean. That's not what you want. You don't want them to just do what they're going to do. You want them to consider you and what you're saying. So open your mouth and say that. Like I said, people can't read your mind all the time. Let the person know that you're hurt. Let them know it bothers you. Don't just say whatever, or this is the worst. When someone says, what's wrong? And I say, nothing. No, communicate that. I'm disappointed. I thought when we came on this vacation, we wouldn't be on our phones this much. Or I'm disappointed because, I thought blah, 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 blah. Open up. Share your expectations. And a lot of times, the person didn't even know what you expected. I see so many people who assume, and it's not even like a bad situation like cheating or lying. It's just you had two different expectations. So open up and tell your partner what it is that you want. Or if it's something that you see happening repeatedly, let them know, hey, I know we're about to go on this trip, or I know we're about to go here, but it would really mean the world to me if you put your phone away and just gave me some undivided attention. You have to speak up. We have to use our big boy and big girl words because our partners cannot read our minds. So get vulnerable. If you can't get vulnerable, get a new partner. If you can't get a new partner, really look into getting therapy. Really look into getting marriage counseling or couples counseling. And if you can afford to be by yourself, get single and start to heal. It's possible to heal within relationships, but a lot of times I think it's easier when you're by yourself because you're forced to just work on you. There are no distractions and things like that. And sometimes it could be your partner that's the one that has a lot of issues, and so they could be triggering things that aren't even an issue for you. If anyone has any questions, drop them now. We could do a little Q&A if you guys have anything, or if you want to share any situations that you had with communication. Let me know if you had a situation where you tried to communicate and it blew up in your face. I would love to see that. Chastity says, someone I dated told me that we always argue presently. So I asked him, why does he want to talk to me? He said 85% of the time is good. I don't feel like that's high enough. It would have to be what you guys argue about. Because if he says he feels like you're always arguing, that sounds like more than, just, what is that, 15%. Okay, P. Johnson says, I just started following you here on Instagram. Oh, nice. Thank you. This is so helpful because this is how I respond to my husband, because I'm not sure how he would respond to my vulnerability. That makes me so happy. Thank you so much. You guys, I'm telling you, here's the thing. Here's the thing. Is it okay if I talk about my faith? All right. I know I'm in mixed company, but I want to say this. There is a spiritual thing that happens. There's a spiritual thing. And when we go from a place of anger and, fear, it sends out these vibes. It's like, it sends totally different vibes than when you come from a place of humbleness, which is what vulnerability is, humbleness and rawness and transparency. Most people want to comfort when they see someone that's hurting. When they see someone who's angry and lashing out, they want to do this or they want to do this. They want to defend or push away. And so we self-sabotage so many times by not expressing ourselves. But here's the thing, like I said, if you do express yourself, and I hope this is not the case because you just said that's your husband, so you're in a whole marriage with him, but if you express yourself and you're vulnerable and they are not, what is the word? They are not considerate with your vulnerability, then that is a big deal. That is a very, very big deal because stuff is going to bottle up and bottle up and bottle up and bottle up. And that reminds me of another point. I know that there are personality types because I have dated them. But there are certain people who will not say something and they give themselves credit for that. They'll say, oh, I don't jump on everything. I let things slide. But the thing is, they're not letting it slide. They have a full-on mental list and they are jotting things down subconsciously. And when the list becomes full and they run out of paper, they explode. And all these emotions from the things that they spared you from, they're not sparing you because they're coming out later. So if you have something that bothers you, don't look at it as a bad thing expressing it, because it would also explain to the person why you're being passive aggressive. A lot of times we're passive aggressive and we don't even know that we are. So something bothers you. Let's take the example I gave, the random example of being on the phone. If you went to dinner and he was on the phone the whole time and in your mind you were looking forward to being this romantic evening with just the two of you, speak up. But you can even preface it by saying, babe, this is not a big deal. I don't want to ruin the mood of the night. But I'm just letting you know I was a little bummed. I had hoped to be able to have have some good conversation with you, and I felt like you were on the phone the whole time. But get it out. I feel like it's like diffusing something. It's like letting the air out of the balloon, and it takes the pressure out of the room. But how many times have we seen something on a movie or on a show, and it's like, it's a buildup. So first he was on the phone, and then when he came home, he was watching the game instead of climbing in bed with her, and you think you're not saying anything, but your whole energy is shifted. Now he wants to cuddle you in bed, and you all want him to read your mind. And then it seems like you're being petty over something so small, when in reality, it has built up. All right? So, hey, Anthony. So I say it's best to kind of just let it all hang out. Obviously, you can go to the extreme and be over the top with it. But almost like giving the person subtitles. Let them know what's happening. It's like a running play-by-play so the person can understand. And a lot of times they can make adjustments along the way before it explodes into something really, really bad. He said, meaning that I prefer not to address it and rather just let it roll off to enjoy the day. But I think sometimes, like I said, Anthony, sometimes I think that we think we're letting it go, but it's still stored up in the back of our mind. Because if it was something that bothered you that much that you noted it, I feel like it's impossible to not let it somehow sink in. So, I mean, you're the only person who can gauge that, but I that's just kind of like a cautionary piece of advice. All right, guys, that is all I have for today. Hopefully all of you are on my mailing list because, like I announced before, I have my singles webinar that I'm going to be doing. It's a course that I'm putting together that I'm going to be talking about the importance of self-love, how to make sure you have self-love, how to practice self-love, and how to enjoy dating even more. So make sure that you are on my list because I am going to give the people on my mailing list first dibs for the live event. Everyone else is just going to have access to the replay, but I'm going to have a full day prior to my email list, and then I'm going to promote it publicly on my website and my social media and things like that. But ladies, make sure you sign up. There are so many times where I have women ask me for advice, and from my vantage point, it is so simple. And I'm like, how come they can't see this? It's crystal clear. But then when I put myself in that woman's shoes and I go back a couple years to where I did not have an adequate amount of self-love, those same things perplexed me. So I really want to teach women how to have that foundation. And this is something that I'm going to share in an upcoming post on Instagram. But basically it's like this. Trying to discern between potential partners when you have a lack of self-love is like trying to be objective and judge a cooking contest when you are starving, when you are emaciated, okay? Have you ever been so hungry, you ate something that normally you didn't like and it just tasted like the best thing in the world? It's because you were so desperate for food. You were starving. You were so hungry. Well, a lot of women are starving for love. And so they're coming into the dating world with a very unfair advantage. And a lot of the things that are a really big deal that they would have seen as a really big deal and a huge sign to not go past this point, they blaze past it because they're at least getting crumbs. They're at least getting some crumbs along the way. And they're like, man, before I had nothing. I had no guy. I had nothing. But now I'm at least getting crumbs. And the idea of letting this guy go is scary because it's like, wait, at least I was getting crumbs. I'm going to go back to having nothing? And I don't know when the next plate's coming by? That mindset, if that resonates with you, if that mindset is something that you can identify with, you definitely want to take this course. I think it's going to be a game changer because for me, it was a game changer. I have never been in the position where I was so comfortable letting somebody go. I mean, I'm not subhuman. You know, I'm still human. I still have emotions. I still feel bad. But I don't pine over guys anymore the way I used to. And I don't fantasize about the relationship that never was. I don't fantasize about having that guy. I'm real with myself and I say, no, this is what you were going through and this is how uncomfortable you were and this is why you let him go. And I don't allow myself to wallow and feel sad when a situation doesn't work out. But that's only because I have done the work and I have learned, by the grace of God, how to fill up my own tank first. I love that. Elizabeth says it's okay to be thirsty but not parched. Yes, never parched. That is not good. Not good at all. Anthony says, wait, what if you're one who compresses to maintain control of your emotion so one can approach the situation logically rather than emotionally? Now, that's okay, but as long as it's coming out. That's why I was saying in the example, and I think you had popped in after. That's why I was saying to, I think it was P. Johnson, where she said, I think it was her who said, but asking about bringing it up later. that's fine. As long as you make a mental note to come back to it. Babe, yesterday when we were on our hike, I didn't want to ruin the mood, but this really bothered me. I want to talk about it. As long as you talk about it eventually meaning like the next day, I think that's fair about the next day or the next time you're out of that situation. That's good. But if you're just saying, I'm just not going to talk about it at all, thinking that you're, just taking one to the chin, it doesn't work, and it's going to add to your list of offenses and you're going to explode down the road. Any other questions before I go? I love all these new faces. This is really nice to see. And guys, we have more viewers than likes. So if you haven't done so before I end, please smash that like button, you guys. Every comment, every like, every share lets YouTube know that this is content that is worth putting out there. And you know what? I'm going to close with this because I don't see any new comments coming in or new questions. But I want to close with this. I was really troubled earlier today, and I did a post about it on Instagram, but I was going through my timeline, and I follow different content creators because I kind of want to see what topics are trending or what people are talking about so I can stay in the loop and also get inspiration sometimes as far as topics. And thank you, Anthony. And I was looking at a few of the people that I follow, and it's not just men because there are women who do it as well, but I see so much hatred being spewed at the opposite sex. And although I do talk about what people are doing wrong and what I feel like needs to be worked on, I try to always have a solution. So if I point at something that I think is bad or negative or toxic, I will try to give an alternative. I will try to say, hey, try this instead. And I also work really, really hard to not say all, only, never. I try not to use absolutes because nothing applies to everybody. There are segments. And I think it's really dangerous when people do posts and things that say, women do this, men do this, and they paint this entire gender in a negative way. Yes, there are people in that gender who struggle with that, but a lot of times the things that are being called out are human traits. But at least if you're going to call out a gender, because we do know there are certain things that more so women do than men and vice versa, say some. Say some. So I would really encourage you guys to be careful who you are following, because that kind of stuff seeps into us, seeps into our spirit, and it really adds more fuel to the gender war, which disgusts me. It really does. And I feel like there are so many precious people out there, and I always say I'm not team women. I'm not team men. I'm team truth. I'm team relationships. I'm team healthy communication, healthy homes. And nothing is to be gained by ridiculing what you see as a weakness in the opposite sex. If you do see something that is a pattern, speak to it, but be constructive. And this goes back to that whole thing that I went over with the menstrual cycle comment. And a lot of the guys on the original post still didn't get it. It went over their head. But I was saying women were triggered because, there was nothing constructive about it. Like, there was nothing that a woman could go, oh, okay, that's bothering the men. Let me fix it. So let's be careful to do that. Watching what you're taking in. And also in the comments, we got to be careful not to be negative. Sometimes I will post things like, ladies, work on this or something like that. And then a guy will come through and be like, yeah, right. Or, man, if only they do this. And we got to be positive. We got to be proactive and think positively, because people are watching. This is sinking in and seeping in to other people's spirits. So we're all in this together, you guys. And just because the negative people are loud, it doesn't mean that they are in the majority. All right? They're just the most annoying. So keep doing what you're doing. I love that you're spending part of your weekend watching content about having healthier relationships. This right here gives me hope that it's not for naught. There are people out there who look outside of themselves. They want to do better. They want to grow, and they love the opposite sex. So that is super, super encouraging to hear. All right, guys, if you haven't done so already, make sure you check out my website. I've got my my books up there that I wrote. I tried to put my little my little graphic up. I don't know why it's not working right now. I was going to put my graphic up, but I wrote a book, First Date 101. It's a man's guide to dating a man. I polled over 1,000 men and asked them the things that they absolutely loved on first dates and the things that they absolutely hated on first dates. And I compiled it into a nice, neat little book for women. So you can get that on my website, chasingyonci.com. The link is in the description below. And for guys, I wrote the book, Why Women Love Assholes. And so I talked about what it is that the bad boy does subconsciously that is so intoxicating to women, so that the good guys can use those same things to their advantage. And the very last thing, I just completed another guide yesterday. It's the 3 things that all women should know about men. I'm actually giving that away for free to anybody who DMs me about my freebie. So just DM me freebie and I will send that to you. That's a reward for joining my email list, but anybody who joins in, you guys have access to that book for free. Okay, I think that's it for all my church bulletins. I loved hanging out with you guys today, and until next time, tell someone that you love them.